What is your best parking spot revenge? I lived in this townhouse place with the worst HOA president you could imagine. Doug was this retired guy with way too much time who treated every tiny rule like it was written in stone. He'd walk around writing tickets for flower pots being the wrong color and telling kids to be quiet at 4 in the afternoon. But the worst part was how he watched our parking lot like some kind of security guard. I had 2 parking spots that I paid for every month. They had my apartment number painted right on the concrete. But every single week, Doug's grown son would park in one of my spots when he came to visit. This guy didn't even live here, but he'd just take my spot like it belonged to him. I left nice notes at first, then I took pictures and sent them to the HOA board. I even called Doug directly to complain, but nothing ever happened. Doug would just say, he's family, and act like the rules didn't count for his precious son. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift at work and was completely exhausted. When I pulled into the lot, both my spots were taken. Doug's son had parked in one and Doug himself was in the other. There was no street parking anywhere and the towing company was already closed for the night. I had to park 5 blocks away in some sketchy neighborhood and walk back in the pouring rain. By the time I got to my door, I was soaked and furious. I stood there dripping in my hallway, staring at Doug's stupid HOA rules poster, and something just snapped. The next morning, I walked over to Doug's parking spot, which was right across from mine. I measured it carefully and realized his big SUV barely fit between the lines. That gave me an idea that made me smile for the first time in weeks. That afternoon, I went to the car rental place and specifically asked for their widest compact car. The guy looked at me weird when I said I needed something that would fit in tight spaces, but he handed me the keys to this little silver sedan that was perfectly wide. I waited until Doug came home and parked his SUV that evening. Around 2 in the morning, I drove the rental car over and wedged it as close as possible to the driver's side of Doug's SUV. I'm talking maybe 6 inches of space. On the other side was a concrete wall. There was literally no way for Doug to get into his car unless he climbed through the back. Before I left, I wrote a note and stuck it under his windshield. Hey neighbor, sorry I parked so close. Had no choice since my spots were taken. If you want to discuss parking rules, you can find my number in the HOA handbook, just like I tried to find help with mine. The next morning, I got up early and positioned myself by my kitchen window with a cup of coffee. Around 7:30, Doug came outside in his bathrobe to go somewhere. When he saw his car, he just stood there for a full minute like his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. I watched him walk around his SUV 3 times, getting more and more frustrated. He tried squeezing between the cars but couldn't even get his arm through the gap. Finally, the 60-year-old man in a terry cloth robe had to crawl into the back of his SUV through the trunk. His wife had to come outside and hold down the back seats while he squirmed forward like some kind of angry raccoon. The whole time he was yelling about lawyers and police reports and how this was harassment. But here's the beautiful part. I wasn't breaking any rules. I was parked completely within the lines of a legitimate guest spot. It took Doug almost 15 minutes to get into his car. By then, half the neighborhood was watching from their windows. I saw at least 3 people taking pictures. Mrs. Garcia from upstairs was laughing so hard she was crying. Doug never parked in my spot again. Neither did his son. In fact, I don't think his son visited for like 2 months after that. But the best part came a week later. I found a new rule in our community email. Any guest vehicles found in assigned resident parking will be towed immediately without notice. I printed that email, got it framed at the mall, and hung it right next to my front door.